One of the most fascinating research of the last 5 years has to do with protein. Shows that you can regulate protein to lengthen or shorten human lifespan.
Mhm.
And that is, it's really fascinating that as you increase animal protein in the diet, it shortens human lifespan. So more animal protein means more death. And the shortest lifespans, the most early life deaths, premature deaths, occurred in people on keto diets.
This is Doctor Talks.
I'm excited to introduce you to our next guest. He's actually a friend of mine and also a neighbor. He lives pretty close to me, and sometimes we'll play a little pickleball together. But his name is Dr. Joel Fuhrman. He's a medical doctor, board-certified family physician, also a 7-time New York Times bestselling author, and an internationally recognized expert in the field of nutrition. He even coined the term Nutritarian, which you may have heard before. That came from Joel. So he's an amazing physician. He does so much research. He dives in and he's got so much research to back up what he's going to talk about today. And today he's going to talk about reversing disease. Sounds good. Slowing aging. Sounds really good. And maximizing longevity. So Joel, welcome to the Global Energy Healing Summit.
Great to be here. Excited
Yeah.
about our talk today.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, let's start with your background. You have an amazing background. You actually were, and I didn't do it in the introduction, but you were a champion figure skater growing up and competed for the United States. And then you did not end up becoming a doctor until a little bit later. You didn't go right out of school. So talk about your journey to becoming a physician first, and then let's dive into some of your work.
Right. I was on the United States World Figure Skating team. I was a pair skater with my younger sister, and we were the third in the world in 1976
Wow.
in the world's professional championships. And then I went at that point, I was coaching skating, training competitors that trained internationally, that competed internationally,
Mhm.
and then worked in my father's shoe business with the intention of taking over his chain of shoe stores.
Yeah.
And I realized that my passion was really nutrition and what nutrition could do to enable people to recover from serious illnesses. And I decided to have my father sell the shoe stores, retire, and I would move on. And I went back to the post-medical, I went back to the postgraduate pre-med program at Columbia because I
Mhm.
didn't have all the pre-medical requirements in college at NYU. And then I went to University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine and graduated in 1988. So
Yes.
I didn't go to medical school for 84 when I was about 29 years old.
But how did nutrition become your passion? I'm just curious, like what was it that sparked that fire in you that now you've had for so many years? What was it back then?
My father introduced me because he was sickly and overweight and
Mhm.
had some medical issues. So he introduced me to the work of Dr. Herbert Shelton from the American Natural Hygiene Society. So as a child, in my early teenage years, I was already reading a lot of books and magazines on nutrition and natural healing and visiting and going to conferences in my teens of people and seeing people who recovered from serious illnesses through nutritional interventions. So I've
Yeah.
been involved with this kind of thought processes since I'm a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's so cool. And you definitely have tremendous passion. I can vouch for that. You live what you talk about. You're perfectly fit and you've got this amazing retreat center out here near where we both live. You actually live there, but near where I live, where people come in from all over the world for your guidance and your health. So, what are some of the key features of the nutritarian diet? Talk us through how, how what is the nutritarian diet? Talk us through that a little bit.
Sure. Well, the word nutritarian, means rich in nutrients
Yeah.
and comprehensive in its exposure to all the nutrients humans need to maximize their health and slow aging and promote longevity, which means preventing heart attacks and strokes and
Mhm.
preventing cancer. If you're
Yeah.
going to promote longevity, you have to not get cancer or die of a heart attack. And you also want to live to be, and I'm saying the natural lifespan for humans, for people eating healthfully, should be between 97 and 107 years old.
I
The
love
center of the bell should center around 100 years old or a little bit further. And
wow.
it's what I'm observing in my people who following my program who are elderly, what they're able to achieve.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying right now is that the foundational principle has to do with moderate caloric restriction in the context of micronutrient excellence. micronutrient excellence, we're saying, is a high concentration of foods that have a high nutrient density, a lot of vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals per calorie. And that puts green vegetables at the top of the pyramid, or that puts green vegetables that win the race by, they're way ahead at the finish line because they're so low in calories, but nutritionally concentrated. And we're a green vegetable dependent animal. The intraepithelial lymphocytes that surround the villi in the small intestines, that are a first line of defense against infection, are fueled and activated by green vegetable compounds. And the green vegetables also produce the healthiest type of gram-positive bacteria that coat the villi. The combination of these foods, and I'm talking about 2 raw foods and 2 cooked foods that synergistically build the healthiest microbiome. And the 2 raw foods are raw lettuce, which is the richest source of sulfoquinavose, which is a necessary nutrient to support the growth of bacteria in the gut, and the isothiocyanates from green cruciferous vegetables like bok choy and arugula and cabbage and things like that. So that combination of eating those things raw maximizes the production of those beneficial anti-cancer compounds and also the fuel to grow the bacteria. And then we use raw onions or scallions that have those organosulfite compounds and quercetin and other factors and inulin that also have anti-cancer substances that thicken the microbiome and the biofilm that cover the villi, that produce serotonin, build our immune system, good for the brain, good for so build our defenses. And then the 2 cooked foods, those are raw foods. And then the cooked foods I'm talking about are an assortment of cooked mushrooms and cooked beans that are cooked to softness.
Yeah.
Because beans are the richest source of what we call resistant starch.
Yeah.
As a carbohydrate source, they have the slowest digestible carbohydrates. The slowness of their absorption keeps their glycemic load very low. Resistant starch are resistant to enzymatic degradation, which means they have to be broken down by bacteria, which means they're a fuel for the growth of bacteria, which then which help thicken the microbiome, and also the cooked mushrooms have a tremendous powerful effect on immune function. We're mushroom-dependent animals in the sense that all our cells have receptors on the surfaces for ergothioneine, a substance found in mushrooms, that we have this connection with mushrooms in the natural world. Why would we have ergothioneine receptors on our cells that come from mushrooms if we weren't, so we've developed over the centuries or millennium of 50,000 years to be, or in our, how it happened, but our immune systems function dependent on these foods. And so we're eating a lot of these protective foods that have this association with prevention of cancer. And I use an acronym. I made up an acronym, G-BOMBS.
I know your G-bomb. We have that in our kitchen.
And that's just representative of having people remember the foods that have the most scientific support to prevent cancer. So they can divide an cancer prevention diet. Because I'm saying this, and you don't need to get cancer, that we can wipe out more than 90% of cancers right now if everybody ate this way from a young age. And there weren't even many cancers but before the 17th century. Before the 1700s, there were hardly any cancers recorded because people couldn't eat that much meat. They couldn't afford it. And there were no processed foods and junk food and sugars around. They just were eating mostly vegetables and what they could survive on.
Yeah.
And the first cancers that were first recorded in any number in human history were scrotal and testicular cancers in males who worked as chimney sweeps from inhaling smoke.
Wow.
And we know that that polyaromatic hydrocarbons from burning wood and from burning buildings is not good for our health. I mean, that smoke is definitely, but in any case, we've learned so much in the last 2 decades, and we have such advancements in nutritional science that enable us to develop a dietary portfolio that can push the envelope of human longevity and really know how humans should maximally slow aging and live to be without the fear of disease.
I love that. I love that. That's so exciting and promising what you're talking about. So G-bomb, let's go and let me see if I can get it. Okay. Greens is G, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then berries.
Well, berries is the last B.
Okay. So beans,
right?
Onions, mushrooms, and then berries.
And the last S on the end.
Oh,
seeds. Hemp seeds and chia seeds and flax seeds, which have amazing protective effects. For example, There was a recent study that showed that they tracked women who had breast cancer for 10 years, and those that ate a little bit of lignin. The lignin is the substance in flaxseed that binds estrogen, lowers estrogen production, protects the breast against estrogen stimulation, protects the prostate. In other words, have powerful anti-cancer effects. But those that had a third of a milligram of lignin had a 71% decreased risk of dying of breast cancer compared to women not having lignin in the diet. I mean,
Wow.
there's no drug, there's no intervention that the medical profession can do that can drop risk of death by 71%. And
Yeah.
that was a third of a milligram of lignin. And a teaspoon of ground flax has 7 milligrams. And that was
Right.
only a third of 1 milligram. So that was too little, too low of a dose, too late in life. They shouldn't have waited till they had advanced cancers to do it. But even with a low dose, so late in life, it still decreased risk of death by 71%. So we're
Yeah.
saying that these are powerful to put together a dietary portfolio with all these different foods that independently work synergistically. Like studies on mushrooms show they reduce the risk of breast cancer by about 64% when you just take in 10 grams of mushrooms a day on the average, which is the size of your thumb.
Really?
Mm.
Wow. So, hey, on mushrooms, we can buy mushrooms. There's also mushroom powders that seem popular now. Are the powders effective?
Yes. I mean, what I'm saying right now is that fresh mushrooms and dried mushrooms and powdered mushrooms are all valuable additions to a healthy diet
Okay.
because fresh mushrooms have their own unique property. And I buy this bag of like dried, wild, collected mushrooms with black trumpets and cremini. And
Yeah.
because the wider assortment of mushrooms you consume, especially of wild mushrooms, are very protective. And then, of course, I even have on my website a 10 anti-cancer mushroom extract that I give people who have issues just to make sure they have a wide exposure of different varieties of mushrooms. So
Yeah.
yes, every way you increase your mushroom exposure, it can potentially improve your health. Particularly people who don't eat a wide variety of fresh mushrooms, and how it's
Yeah.
hard to get a wide variety of fresh mushrooms in our diet.
Absolutely. So another question, some people are touting, beware of lectins. Beans have lectins, but in the research I've done is if you cook them until they're soft, which is what you said, that most of the lectins are destroyed, or do we even need to worry about that?
Well, you'd only have to worry about that if, like you said, if you didn't cook them,
Yeah.
because lectins can cause hemagglutinin of red blood cells. So
Yeah.
beans are a food that can be harmful if you ate them uncooked.
Yeah.
But that's irrelevant because it's not quite relevant. Well, people should know about it, I guess, because
Yeah.
we should well cook our beans. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
On the other hand, all populations and all long-lived populations and all long-lived individuals are bean eaters, and beans have been shown to extend human lifespan and be linked to longer areas of the world where they live longer. The populations that eat beans live the longest,
Hmm?
and individuals that eat beans and modulate their bean intake can increase their lifespan by eating more beans. And again, we have this opportunity to have a variety of beans.
Right.
And we're showing that a variety of foods increases our potential for lifespan. So we don't just eat chickpeas.
Sure.
We eat red kidney beans and split peas and, and soy. We eat different types of beans in our weekly schedule of foods we're
Yeah.
eating, you know.
One of my favorite snacks that I've picked up recently is they are fava beans that have been roasted and they're super crunchy. Is that okay?
The problem is when you dry cook a food to make it crispy and roasted,
Yeah.
you lose some of the protective anti-cancer effects and you
Okay.
form some acrylamides,
Yeah.
so we don't really recommend people eat like toast and the crust of like pizza and bagels and things that are roasted and darkened and hardened. So we emphasize water-based cooking methods
Okay.
because water-based cooking methods that keep the food soft, not crunchy, you
Yeah.
know, don't dry out the food and damage the nutrients.
Okay.
And plus the fact that we do make some crunchy things, but I usually use them in a dehydrator. Like I'll
Yeah.
use kale chips and I'll make like tofu pizza jerky and I'll make dried crackers, but I'm making them into a cracker or a granola at a low temperature.
Yeah.
So I'm not like 120 degrees for like 10 hours. So I'm
Right.
not bringing out too much of not baking it to form the more harmful compounds that are more dark and make the food more darker and browner.
One of the things you recommend, which we try to do at our house here, is a big salad for lunch, right? Why is that so important? Like a big, not just a little side salad, but you say the salad should be a huge portion of the lunch.
Well, that's a great question because I want people to either write this down, what I'm going to say right now, or memorize it. It's
Okay.
very important to know to memorize its next like 10 words, and that is raw vegetable consumption has the most powerful and consistent association with the reduction of cancers of all types. I'd like to even say that one more time so people
Yeah.
got that.
And
So it's so important. What I'm saying here is more than 206 epidemiologic studies show, and here's what I want them to write down and memorize.
okay.
Raw vegetable consumption has the most consistent and powerful association with the reduction of cancers of all types. So I'm saying eating a big salad a day is a hallmark of a nutritarian diet. At
Mm,
least once a day, having a large salad, and you make it half lettuce and
mhm.
half other leafy greens, kale, bok choy, arugula, watercress, anything, to make the combination of the lettuce with the cruciferous greens that give you the maximal anti-cancer effect, and also brings out the other unique feature of a nutritarian diet is that most Americans get their fat intake from eating oils or animal fats. And we get our fat intake from eating a whole food form of fat in the
Mm,
form of nuts and seeds, almonds, cashews, pecans, walnuts, hemp seeds, sunflower seeds. In other words, we're making a dressing that may
yeah,
have almonds and hemp seeds blended with tomato sauce and roasted garlic and some black fig vinegar, and that might be the dressing. Or it might be orange navel oranges or red or
yeah,
blood oranges whipped with some blood orange vinegar with some cashews and toasted sesame seeds mixed with some squeezed lemon or something. So we're making or make a Caesar dressing. So we're making dressings that are made with a whole nuts and seeds. And that's like 3 or 4 reasons why that's so important. Number
yeah.
1, the fat intake with the salad facilitates the absorption of the anti-cancer phytochemicals. So we
Okay.
like people to have about a half an ounce of nuts with every meal because they
Okay.
increase absorption of the nutrients from the other
Put them
food.
on the salad even, right?
Put them on. You don't have to make the dressing with it, but you have to put them on the salad. If you're gonna make a low-fat dressing, then you should still have a few nuts and seeds to eat with
Yeah,
the salad.
yeah.
Okay. The second thing is when you use nuts and seeds as a source of fat, the fat calories come into the bloodstream very slowly over a 3 or 4-hour period. So the body can preferentially burn it for energy. When you
Okay.
extract the oil from the nut and seed and take it as an oil not from the nut and seed, the oils come into the bloodstream instantaneously. And the
Mm,
body has to turn on fat storage mechanisms to store it as fat instead of burn it as energy. And the
okay.
oil, because it rushes into the bloodstream so rapidly, stimulates the dopamine centers in the brain and increases appetite and makes you kind of like addicted to higher caloric concentration. So it
Mm,
makes people overeat and it
yeah,
makes them gain weight. So oil is fattening. It's 120 calories a tablespoon. And it's an appetite stimulant and it leads to food addiction. And when you cook oil or fry oil or heat oil, then it forms carcinogenic changes that makes it more potentially a cancer promoter.
mm,
And nuts and seeds are linked in scores of studies that show incredible high degree of corroboration, which mean the studies show the same thing from researchers all over the world.
yeah,
And that is they show about a 40% reduction in cardiovascular death and about a 30% reduction in cancer deaths when people utilize them in their diet, even when they don't even when they don't eat a nutritarian diet.
yeah,
Just adding nuts and seeds to a regular diet lowers risk of heart attack death by about 40%.
yeah. How about
But
avocado? How about avocado as a source of
Yes,
fat?
yes, including nuts and seeds and avocado. But if
Okay.
you were overweight and couldn't have enough caloric room to have both,
Yeah.
you probably get more protection from the nuts and seeds, especially walnuts, hemp seeds, those high omega-3 ones. So if you
Okay.
have the caloric room to include an avocado, I eat avocado because I exercise and I'm
Yeah.
not worried about those extra calories. But for some
Right.
people at my retreat that come here to lose weight, we give them like avocado toast maybe once a week and another avocado on the salad, maybe another time of during the week, maybe twice a week. But we don't give them too much avocado because we're moderately calorically restricting them.
Right.
If you caloric restrict people too far, then they start to obsess about food and they start to binge and go off the diet. And so I'm not talking about radical caloric restriction. We're
Yeah.
talking about just moderate caloric restriction so they get to their perfect weight. So they lose weight regularly. And a nutritarian is somebody eating super healthfully at their ideal weight, or a person eating super healthfully and moving towards their ideal weight at about 2 pounds a week. If
Okay.
they're not losing 2 pounds a week, then they're not really following a nutritarian program because
Right.
it takes about a kilogram of weight loss a week for the body to stop producing excess free radicals and promoting inflammation from the fat cells and reduces insulin resistance and it reduces aromatase enzyme production of estrogen and angiogenesis promotion. So what I'm saying right now, I know I rushed through that, but I'm saying
Yeah.
that fat cells have certain dangers that promote cancer and accelerate aging. When you're overweight and losing weight at 2 pounds a week, the dangers from the fat cells diminish so significantly. And because even though you're still overweight, because you're losing weight steadily. You don't see the inflammation and the dangers occur from being overweight as much. So if you're on the way to your ideal weight, you've already immediately in the losing process, reducing your risk of having a heart attack or a stroke dramatically.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, obviously, vegetables are so critically important. What are your thoughts on fruit? I mean, we have berries and G-bomb, obviously, but other fruits or smoothies, that have whole fruits in them, things like that. What are your thoughts on that? Because a lot of people have been taught, oh, it's too much sugar or other things like that. What do you tell people about fruit, Joel?
I want even people looking to lose weight. I want to at least eat at least 3 servings of fruit a week, at least 3 servings of fruit a day. The
Oh,
Women's Healthy Eating and Living study, the WHEAL study, has been corroborated by other studies that show that even though vegetables show the most protection of cancers,
mhm,
diets that include fruits and vegetables, people have lower cancer rates than people just having vegetables alone.
mhm.
So again, all these studies seem to show consistently that the more variety of foods, of plants, foods, different types you include in the diet, it increases the potential for a longer lifespan. And I'm claiming that where in human history, especially living here in California, have people had the opportunity to eat so many different types of natural plants,
Yeah,
sprouts, microgreens, wild berries, pomegranates, kumquats, you know, and still have a wide assortment of vegetables and mushrooms. And so we're saying that this assortment of foods is an advantage in modern history that our ancestors and even the blue zones don't have it available to them. So even
yeah,
the blue zones live about 6 to 8 years longer than the average Americans. It's not still the ideal diets that we're trying to replicate. The
yeah,
science has moved along so we can, well, the blue zone's moving in the right direction, but we could do much better than the blue zones. And I'm
yeah,
making this radical claim. I'm saying that people can live 20 years longer
yeah,
with predictability and
yeah.
with good, healthy life expectancy, with our full mental faculties intact in our later years and dramatically increase our healthy life expectancy.
That's compelling. That's super compelling. Yeah.
Mm.
So people that are worried because they've heard fruits will cause inflammation, you're saying as long as it's a whole fruit, it's okay to eat?
Well, that's a good point. It's that when you juice just have the juice and take the fiber away, like
Yeah.
drinking apple juice, you don't get the benefit. It's not
Yeah.
helpful. So if you're making a smoothie, you don't want to add fruit juice into it. You want to add the whole fruit into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're not giving a fruit-based diet. We're eating one or two pieces of fruit after a vegetable or low glycemic meal. And
Yeah.
don't forget, at the beginning of this presentation, I described how eating this combination of foods thicken the biofilm that covers the villi that
Right.
slows the glycemic exposure into the bloodstream. The
Oh,
rate at which fruit calories enter the bloodstream, the rate at which sugar enters the bloodstream is controlled by the microbiome and the type of cells and the thickness of your biofilm.
yeah.
So how do you turn a moderate glycemic load into a low glycemic load food? Then you eat the beans and the mushrooms and the onions and the greens that will control the absorption. When you eat the mango for breakfast, it's low glycemic. And that's why people on keto or paleo diets, like a person on a keto diet eating a lot of saturated fat, says, look, I can't eat a mango or some oatmeal because my sugars go through the roof. Well, of course your sugars goes through the roof because you have so many gram negatives and you eat so much saturated fat that distorted the shape and function and of the insulin receptor. So now you become insulin resistant. So now you can't eat a mango without your sugars going up. So the keto diet caused them to be sugar sensitive to then feel, so if they do on their blood sugar, they see a heightened response to eating a piece of fruit. Where us Nutritarians, of course, eating
Yeah.
a piece of fruit, eating some mango after a meal, don't see a high sugar point going up because we're eating the whole dietary portfolio promotes these benefits.
That's fascinating, and I've never heard that explanation before. That's really cool. So why do people I mean, there's so much benefit in eating this way you're talking. Why do people have such a hard time changing their diet and giving up the salts and oils and, refined sugars and meats? Why is it so tough for people?
Well, because we don't just develop preferences when we're young, and
Yeah,
any person who eats a certain diet likes the foods they've been raised on. But it's also because these substances have been designed to hijack people's taste buds and addict them to prefer. It's food addiction. What's that?
almost like a drug.
It is like a drug, particularly when we're talking about white flour products.
Ah,
Because white flour products like pizza, bagels, croissants, cookies, and cake turn to sugar in the blood, they're absorbed as sugar. So white flour bread is sugar. There's no different, and it's not a food because a food has substances to support lifespan. And there's no vitamin or mineral, or there's no content of nutrients, just other than the caloric macronutrient there.
Ah,
And in doing so, the body can't convert it into energy effectively. The
mm,
mitochondria need vitamins and minerals, cofactors, and they produce free radicals that have to be diffused with phytochemicals, with
yeah,
antioxidants. So when you're taking these empty calories, the body's stripping the body of nutrients, and then the high flood of calories into the bloodstream. By the way, the body more readily stores it as fat because it can't convert into energy as well either. It makes you feel lethargic and not really feeling being active.
yeah.
And it also dummies down your brain at the same time.
Mm,
But it makes you become dopamine insensitive from the chronic flood of calories into the blood. And I'm saying these two foods have the biggest effect on becoming dopamine insensitive and driving up your caloric driver where you can't stop eating food. And
yeah,
those two foods are oils and flour, sugar, maple syrup, sweets and oils. And
mm,
I'm considering white flour to be a sweet. It's,
yeah,
it's not a food. It works in the, so now you have this person that's uncomfortable eating the right amount of calories. They have to try to, and they want the caloric rush into the bloodstream. So
yeah,
an apple doesn't satisfy them. They need something sweeter, like a candy bar, to be satisfied.
yeah,
Eating a salad and a bowl of vegetable bean soup and a piece of fruit is not satisfying. They need something that has more of a caloric rush and more of a caloric hit. So
yeah,
they need that. So meat will do it. Meat or cheese or fried foods or oils will do it. But you can't get enough calories into the bloodstream all at once.
yeah,
So people get acclimated, and then they can't, their addictions that they've developed and their food preferences become so powerful that we say they've lost the keys to the bank, which means they can't make decisions anymore
yeah,
because their primitive brain becomes too much of an overriding factor
right,
affecting their decisions in life and what they choose to eat or drink. Or so we're talking here about alcoholics,
yeah,
cigarette smokers, cocaine addicts, most overweight people. They no longer can behave in their own best interest. They
uh,
have to be they have to eat in a self-destructive manner. And the brain will come up with rationalizations why it's okay to do that, or it's impossible not to do it because
yeah,
their food addiction is too difficult to fight off,
yeah,
and they feel so poorly and so anxious or uncomfortable if they try to change their diet. I mean,
yeah,
that's why I have this retreat here in San Diego, so people could come and stay with me for a few months, and
yeah,
we could counsel them and teach them and have their taste buds change and
yeah,
change their preferences from food for when they go home, they can enjoy and stay and like eating this way. But a
yeah,
person who's like doing it in their own house without the proper information and knowledge that they are going to feel a little bit off for the first week, and it's going to be difficult the first week to make the
yeah.
change. They try it and don't feel well and feel so agitated and uncomfortable, they want to go back to eating junk food again.
What are some of the results you see from people that come to your retreat center and stay with you for a month or two? Because I know many of the people are overweight, sometimes extremely overweight. They have all sorts of chronic conditions. What are some things that you see happen to people when they actually start eating the nutritarian diet and stick with it?
Well, that's the thing. That's why I'm so passionate about what I do and so excited about what I do.
Yeah,
Because I've been doing this for more than 3 decades, almost 40 years already. And so I've taken care of tens of thousands of people. And I have people that had advanced heart disease with poor ejection fractions and blockages in their heart, told they need bypass surgery or angioplasty, and they get well. And they don't need surgery, and they get their. And I have people that come to me right out of the hospital where they leave against medical advice. And I say, come right in here. We'll just get rid of your problems.
and so
But people with
the
diabetes,
arteries by
yes,
eating.
the arteries open up, their ejection fraction comes back to normal. I've had people with cardiomyopathy, swollen hearts,
Yeah,
come back to normal again. The ejection fractions come back again, and diabetes goes away. Their high blood pressure goes away. But I have a lot of people whose asthma go away, and their lupus has gone away, and their rheumatoid arthritis has gone away, and their ulcerative colitis has gone away, and their headaches have gone away, and their fatigue have gone away. So it's remarkable when a person's on like asthma inhalers and they can't take an exercise class, so they have to wake up in the middle of the night to use a rescue inhaler. And
yeah,
we have people completely cured of their asthma. And
wow,
for example, I have a young woman who was on the National Renal Transplant list waiting for a new kidney for lupus, where she
yeah,
had lupus nephritis, who made a complete recovery. And her creatinine, which is a marker of kidney failure, went from 4.2 to zero point 0.8.
wow,
Her kidney completely came back to normal again.
wow,
And my issue is then why I'm so excited about this and why I try to do research and wanting to promote this is because doctors don't tell people this information.
Right.
They don't give people the option and let them know how powerful such nutritional interventions can be that can save people's lives. And that excites me because I can really turn a person's life around. And when they come here for the retreat, instead of having a place where people come for a week or two and they lose weight and go back and can't follow the diet and gain the weight back, we really show them how to make them taste, how to make it taste delicious. And
Right.
we make the repetition and the learning and the training of the taste buds and the emotional counseling on emotional eating, the addiction counseling we give them makes it so they prefer to eat this way and stick with it. So we reduce the chance of recidivism. So that's why I produce a lot of books and videos and
Yeah.
information so people can get more information so they can eat more easily, incorporate in their life and get the support they need to make it stick.
Well, that's amazing. And also they have fun while they're there too. I know you built a pickleball court and there's hiking trails and all sorts of good stuff too, right? Fun stuff.
Yeah, I have a sand volleyball court. Nobody plays volleyball though. They just use the sand. But I have a disc golf course and a pickleball court, and right next to 100 miles of hiking trails and a saltwater pool. And so we have water aerobics and
Yeah.
exercise classes and some equipment. But
Yeah.
you got to come here and play the
It's here in
pickleball here.
It's here in San Diego, which everyone loves coming to San Diego.
Yeah, and we keep the pool pretty warm so we can use it all year round.
Oh, cool. Very cool. So you do a ton of research. What's been the most significant finding over the course of the last decade that you've come across in nutritional science?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because I think in the last 5 years, we have some new research
Hmm.
that strongly corroborates the trend of research over the last decade.
Mhm.
And I have to say, this has been my passion for more than 30 years. And I've reviewed more than probably 10,000 studies a decade. I've reviewed more than 30,000 studies on human nutrition to come to these recommendations. And even my most recent book is called Eat for Life. And that book has more than 2,000 scientific references in it.
Mm.
And I want people to really check those references to
Yeah.
see they're not just putting references down. They actually are corroborating what I'm saying as being true. So
Awesome.
I'm highly interested in supporting what I'm saying with fact so
Yeah.
people can take this information and be taught at colleges or in
Right.
PhD programs and can take it to their doctor and show that it's scientifically supported.
Yeah.
And so look, one of the most fascinating research of the last 5 years has to do with protein. Shows that you can regulate protein to lengthen or shorten human lifespan.
Hmm.
And it's really fascinating that as you increase animal protein in the diet, it shortens human lifespan. So more animal protein means more death. And the shortest lifespans, the most early life deaths, premature deaths, occurred in people on keto diets who are carbohydrate restricted. Well, this has been around for decades, like the Atkins diet back in the 1960s, late 1970s. We had people eating high animal product diets, afraid of eating carbohydrates for
Yeah.
decades. And now we see people who followed those diets long term, and we see in a dose dependent manner as animal protein goes up, it raises certain aging hormones, raising IGF-1, which creates an pro-angiogenic environment that promotes cancer, and also promotes TMAO, trimethylamine oxide, which inflames the endothelium of blood cells, increasing risk of heart attack and stroke. So we know diets richer in animal protein shorten lifespan considerably, and diets richer in plant protein extend human lifespan to the same degree as animal proteins shorten human lifespan, which is really fascinating because most of the vegan community used to be macrobiotic diet, just eat rice, or a fruit-based diet, just eat fruit. But
Yeah.
now we know that the excess IGF-1 is damaging,
Mhm.
but being too low in IGF-1 with not enough protein is also damaging. And the high protein plant foods modulate certain hormones that stabilize stem cells and
Mhm.
prevent telomere shortening and accelerate and activate the antioxidant response element and the healing elements in cells, and genes silence abnormal gene defects. So the plant protein foods and the high plant protein foods, we talked about them already, are
Neat.
green vegetables, seeds, and beans. The plant foods that have the highest protein are nuts and seeds, beans, and green vegetables. And when you put those foods in the diet, you get adequate protein, but not and which stimulate the body, which stimulate the immune system, but stimulate the factors that have anti-aging phenomenons that
Yeah.
maintain stem cell maintenance, anti-inflammatory effects, and prevent aging of telomeres or cells.
Yeah. I'm fortunate. I've always liked beans. That's an easy one for me. I grew up eating my mom, with Mexican food with beans, and that might have been the healthiest beans, but now we eat it in a way where there's not oil in it and stuff like that.
They still call that the Hispanic effect because they noticed that in The scientists note in what we call food deserts,
Yeah.
where people don't have access to fruits and vegetables and beans, where they're mostly eating processed foods. Black Americans have higher rates of disease processes living in those areas because they're
Mm.
not eating healthy enough, which affects their future health and their economic and emotional well-being because they're not eating healthy enough. But the Hispanic people living in food deserts don't have as bad an outcome as the Black Americans do. When researchers have uncovered the fact, it's because even when the Hispanics are eating poorly, they still put more beans in their diet. And to the degree that they integrate and add beans to the diet, it lessens the damage from the other dangerous things they're doing. So
Wow.
beans have an effect to mitigate the damage from, let's say, eating meat. They
Yeah.
absorb some of the iron and absorb some of the toxic compounds. So there's these advantages to just shoving beans or shoving nuts in the diet, even if you're not eating them healthfully. And it's called the Hispanic paradox. Scientists trying to explain why Hispanics don't do as badly as blacks in food deserts. And the paradox is because they're still eating beans.
Very cool. Well, grains. What are healthy grains? Brown rice, is that healthy? Quinoa, things like that?
Quinoa, yes. Teff, amaranth. There's a lot of healthy grains, but we don't want to utilize much brown rice in a diet
Huh.
because the hull of brown rice sucks up arsenic too efficiently. It's a large exposure to arsenic, which is carcinogenic.
Okay.
So the rice-based diets are out of favor today
Okay.
as a source of a healthy grain. And also, most of the commercial rice paddies, they add chicken manure, which contains arsenic, or they're growing them in areas of the world where they used to grow cotton, which
Mm.
used arsenic-containing pesticides to kill boll weevil on the
Oh,
affected the. So the combination of this arsenic content of the soil and the rice's ability to suck up arsenic with the flooding of the fields is too high. So the only rice I eat today would be the rices that are the wild rices that are, you could say, collected by Indians living on reservations
okay.
in natural marshes. They're not commercially grown, and
Okay.
they're driving in their canoes and knocking down the rice off in the marshes with a bamboo stick and what falls in the canoe. So they're more expensive rices that are naturally grown, harvested, that are not commercially grown.
Yeah. And are there, thank you for that. And are there any ways to, like you mentioned, pizza? Like I don't eat, sometimes I'll have like a gluten-free crust on pizza. Are there any ones that are nutritarian? Any types of pizza crust or,
Well, they make that cauliflower stuff, right? They make cauliflower tortillas and cauliflower wraps they
okay.
make pizza from. But I'll
Okay.
sometimes, make a pizza from a whole wheat pita or something. I
Oh,
like the Ezekiel Food for Life brand of bread
yeah.
or pitas because
Yeah.
they're made with sprouted grains, which are lower glycemic.
Yeah.
You've seen that brand in the frozen section? Yeah. So I
Yeah.
usually use that and just make a pizza out of that or something. If I want to have tomato sauce and some roasted mushrooms or roasted pepper on top, you know what I mean?
Okay. So, but stay away from white flour, obviously, and but you're not. What about people that are gluten sensitive? What are do you? Is that a real thing or?
It's
Um.
a real thing, but it's much rarer than people think because there are many people that think they're gluten intolerant and they're not. They're just intolerant to eating white flour. And
Oh,
most of the books on the dangers of gluten in bread are bringing up studies that show that white flour is dangerous. They're
yeah.
not demonstrating gluten is dangerous in the general population. So they're not really using studies that used whole grains or so I'm saying that if you took the wheat berry and you cooked it in water until it was soft, it would be much lower glycemic than if you ground it into a flour. And it would be much lower glycemic if you took the hull off and ground it into white flour, like a pastry flour.
Yeah.
So it's how you prepare the wheat that makes it more dangerous. If you water cooked it as a grain, it would be much healthier. And then you would find that probably 1 out of 10 people that think they're gluten sensitive are the ones that are gluten sensitive, and the 9 out of 10 are not once
Okay.
they take out the glycemic effect.
Interesting. Well, amazing, amazing job today, Joel. How do people? What resources do you have for people that want to check out the nutritarian way of eating, and how can they access those resources?
Well, they can always come to drfuhrman.com and see what I have available on the website, all these different resources, recipes,
Yeah.
and books. But I think for this summit, I'm giving a gift of the beginner's guide to the Nutritarian diet
Oh, cool.
and a like a trial membership for if they
Yeah.
want to go to my website. So we're giving up some gifts for people. It
Yeah.
would the summit, which you can make available through a link or something.
Yeah, those will be on the summit website, so please check out those. and then go to Dr. Fuhrman, FUHRMAN.com. And on your site, you got all sorts of resources. You've got obviously information about coming to stay with you and at your beautiful retreat. And then I know you do other retreats. You were just in Italy or somewhere recently, I think, right?
I
Yeah.
did an Italy retreat, and I have an Aspen one coming up in the beginning of April. We're going with a bunch of skiers going away. So we go together, we'll have some fun, and we eat super healthfully while we're there.
Oh, that's amazing. And then you've got different supplements and bars and things like that on your site too, right?
Right. I have food products like salad dressings and sauces and G-Bombs bars, which have the greens and beans and
Yeah.
onions right in the bar. And I have some, so I won't have the additional products to make it easy to do this for people who don't have the time to prepare all the food. So I
Yeah.
want to make it, so I'm just developing things but mostly the knowledge, the motivation, the support, the camaraderie, so people can achieve excellent health.
Yeah. Hey, great job, Joel. Thank you so much for being with us. Final thought for everybody listening. Give them some words of wisdom here.
Don't accept being sick. Don't accept taking medications for the rest of your life. You're on high blood pressure medications or cholesterol drugs or diabetic medications. And, don't just control your disease. Get rid of them. In other words, got to get totally well, and don't think you can't do it. You can do it.
I love that. Wow. So empowering. Thank you, Joel. Great job today. Really appreciate you being with us.
Thank you for tuning in to Dr. Talks. We hope today's episode has enlightened and inspired you on your path to optimal health. Each day is a new opportunity to make choices that empower your well-being. For more insights and strategies, subscribe to our podcast and visit our website, www.drtalks.com. Stay connected, stay healthy, and join us next time on Dr. Talks. Real talks from real doctors on the issues that matter to you most.